Me to give everything I possibly can. I will leave no stone unturned and no song unsung. I'm not some big star. I'm just me.
I will give everything I can. I will do everything possible and leave no song unperformed. No soy una gran estrella. Soy solo yo. Neil Diamond's music inspired millions, but his heart kept secrets. His first wife, Jane Posner, knew him before he became famous. Tuvieron dos hijas. By 1969, they were no longer married. Se culpó a sí mismo por todo. But recently, he shared something surprising. It wasn't only about being a poor husband. He felt a lot of bitterness. That hidden anger harmed their relationship. Now years later, he's finally telling the truth about those tough times. Neil Diamond was born on January 24, 1941, in Coney Island, Brooklyn. His parents, Rose and Kiev Diamond, were the children of immigrants. His father's family was from Poland, and his mother's from Russia. His dad owned a dry goods store, and Neil was raised in a close-knit Jewish community. Life in Brooklyn had its challenges, but it was lively, filled with music, and included a diverse mix of people. The combination of challenges and culture influenced Neil's development, and remained with him throughout his life. Songs like Brooklyn Roads in America come from my early memories as the son of immigrants trying to succeed in New York. Just when Brooklyn was starting to feel like home, the family had to move. World War II led Kiev to Cheyenne, Wyoming, with the army. Neil was still a young boy. The calm, wide skies of the West were very different from the busy streets of Brooklyn. In Wyoming, he fell in love with cowboy films, especially the musical ones. He would watch matinee shows, with big eyes, enjoying singing cowboys on the big screen. After the war, they went back to New York, and lived in Brighton Beach. Moving from wide open spaces to a crowded city was difficult. The difference between freedom and pressure became a part of Neil's emotional experience. You can sense both in the songs he would write later. At Erasmus Hall High School, Neil became a member of the freshman chorus and the choral club. That's where he stood on the same steps as Barbra Streisand. But they weren't friends. They were just two poor kids trying to survive. He once said they would hang out in front of the school, smoking cigarettes. Another student there was Bobby Fischer, the chess genius. Neil didn't remain at Erasmus for a long time. After his family moved again, he switched to Abraham Lincoln High School and joined the fencing team. His best friend Herb Cohen later became an Olympic fencer. Years later, Neil and Barbra sang a duet that became a big hit, You Don't Bring Me Flowers, showing how far those struggling kids from Brooklyn had come. When Neil turned 16, he received a guitar for his birthday. Costó $9.
That little gift changed everything.
He quickly began taking lessons and writing songs. At 15, before even getting a guitar, he already wrote his first song, Hear Them Bells. He wouldn't record it until later, but it started something important. That $9 guitar inspired him to write over 38 top 10 hits and sell more than 130 million records. Although he attended New York University on a fencing scholarship, with plans to become a doctor, music constantly drew him back. That small guitar eventually earned him a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, all from a $9 present. In 1957, Neil spent a summer at Surprise Lake Camp in New York. There he met Pete Seeger, the well-known folk singer. Seeger was on a blacklist during the McCarthy era, but he still went to camps to teach music. Para Neil, fue un momento decisivo.
He watched campers perform songs they had created for Seeger, and it struck him.
Él dijo después que todo comenzó con Pete Seeger. He was my first idol. When he got home, he took out the guitar and started writing more seriously. It became his way to handle frustration, growing up in life. That same year, he started the pre-med program at New York University.
He had guided his high school fencing team to win a city championship, and received a scholarship.
At New York University, he trained with coach Hugo Costello, who was one of the best. Neil joined the Sabre team as the third member, and contributed to winning 2 national championships, and 3 intercollegiate titles. In one series, he fenced in 2 matches without getting hit, nunca. But even so, his guitar was always close by. He brought it on team trips, and played in hotel rooms, always following his love for music.
Yale didn't talk much about why he picked medicine.
Some think it was related to what his family expected of him. It was the dream of immigrants. Study a lot, find a steady job, become a doctor.
Yale intentó vivir ese sueño.
He put in a lot of effort, learned anatomy, memorized formulas, but at night he wrote songs.
During calm times, he wrote lyrics and chords in notebooks.
As he later joked, if this darn songwriting thing hadn't come up, I'd have been a doctor now.
But the truth was,
the songs always stayed with him.
in the end, he couldn't overlook it.
He started missing classes to ride the subway past NYU's stop, heading directly to Tin Pan Alley, the heart of the music publishing industry. Solo fueron unas pocas paradas más dijo. A temptation I couldn't avoid. Él escribía canciones durante la clase y luego intentaba venderlas ese mismo día. By his third year, he hardly went to lectures. The tunes had taken control. In 1962, he received an offer that would change his life.
He would earn $50 a week from Sunbeam Music Publishing for 16 weeks.
It may not seem like a lot, but it was enough for him to quit. He was just 10 credits away from getting his degree, yet he chose to leave. Biographers suggest he could have stayed at NYU until 1965, but the reality is that he had made his decision.
Ejercicio músico nada.
However, life at Sunbeam wasn't fancy. He wrote songs for B-grade artists, and received instructions on how to write them. There was no room for real feelings. In 1962, Neil Diamond reached a difficult moment.
He had just been let go by Columbia Records after 2 unsuccessful singles.
His job at Sunbeam Music only paid $50 a week, and he disliked it. Así que dejó su trabajo. He took a big risk, and rented a small storage room above the well-known Birdland Jazz Club on Broadway. No estaba destinado a ser un hogar. It wasn't originally planned to be a studio, but that's exactly what he made it. The space was very small. It could hardly fit a $30 upright piano.
He also placed a payphone. That was all.
Ese era su mundo. However, something changed in that small room. Finalmente tuvo privacidad. No bosses, no deadlines, no stress, just quiet, and the music from the jazz club below. He said I wasn't under pressure, and suddenly interesting songs started to come up. That's where he wrote Solitary Man, and Cherry Cherry.
He lived by himself, mostly isolated.
But that loneliness became his big opportunity. The truth is, he was very hungry.
Between 1963 and 1966,
Diamond sold about one song each week.
he had a total of 35 cents to spend on food each day.
He bought a sandwich for 23, a Coke for 10, and some candy for 2.
Y eso es todo lo que pudo pagar.
He studied at New York University with a fencing scholarship, and is only 10 credits away from graduating. But now, he had no money, living above a jazz club and writing songs that most publishers didn't want. However, the less money he had, the more truthful his songs became.
No estaba tratando de impresionar a nadie. Él solo estaba sobreviviendo.
That desperation became true art. For 7 long years, nobody wanted to read what he wrote. From 1962 to 1969, Diamond moved from one publishing job to another.
He wrote songs that were very emotional and serious.
They claimed his music lacked enough appeal. They were looking for fast connections. Diamond provided them with stories instead.
He couldn't move.
The biggest setback happened when Bang Records decided not to release his song Shiloh.
They wanted something lively like Kentucky Woman. He felt very sad. He once said it took him 4 months just to write. I said.
That's how tough those years were for him. He kept putting himself into songs, but he was told repeatedly, not enough for business. The real issue was more serious.
Diamond wasn't made for success formulas.
While others sought catchy songs, he concentrated on his lyrics. Significado, emoción. He didn't even know what a hook was meant to be. At Sunbeam Music, he was unable to create anything they asked for.
But Lieber and Stahler's company. He only handled 5 or 6 songs a year. None of them were successful. Meanwhile, other songwriters nearby were creating hip-hop songs. He was not in tune with the entire system. However, what initially made him unappealing to the market, his honesty, was about to become the key factor that changed everything. To do cambio in 1966, Neil Diamond contacted Jeff Berry and Ellie Greenwich, who were a well-known songwriting and producing team at that time. He had just lost another job, and instead of looking for a writing position, he asked them to help him get work. It was a daring decision, but they agreed. Berry and Greenwich wrote 17 Billboard hits in just 1964. They assisted Diamond in securing a contract with Bang Records, which was run by Burt Burns, and the outcome was incredible. Primero vino Solitary Man. Luego Cherry. Both were successful. Ellie Greenwich también cantó como corista. They began their own publishing company named Talleyrand Music. Then something crazy happened. The Monkees recorded the song I'm a Believer by Diamond. It was the top song in America, and remained there for 7 consecutive weeks. After years of being turned down, Neil Diamond was suddenly well known. On August 12, 1966, Bang Records released his first album, The Feel of Neil Diamond. That album featured his first major hits, and shaped his style. The cover was taken under the Brooklyn Bridge by his 17-year-old cousin. It reached number 55. Cherry quickly rose to number 6. These songs weren't just memorable. They were genuine. You could sense their struggle. Él había escrito algunos de ellos en el autobús. Others came from late nights with his piano at Birdland. These were not produced in studios. They were born in quiet, need and determination. His first TV appearances, in 1966 and 1967, confirmed it. When he played on American Bandstand, he quickly connected with the teen audience. Dick Clark played old videos that surprised even Diamond. He chuckled at his long hair and saw the crowd shouting. In one interview, Clark asked about his hair, and Diamond modestly answered, "I don't think I looked well in very long hair." But the truth was, people liked him just as he was raw, emotional, and intense. However, Bang Records had a hidden negative side. Diamond later suggested that organized crime played a role in starting the label. Some guys with broken noses were assisting with playing the records, he said. El logo de Bang incluso mostraba una pistola .38. He shared a story about illegal copies of his records being made in New Jersey. Burt Burns is said to have sent goons to stop it by breaking legs. One of the men that Diamond talked about was Tommy Eboli, from the Genovese crime family. In the Broadway musical, A Beautiful Noise, the story includes a character named Tommy O'Rourke, to reference the real person behind the threats. The situation got worse when Diamond began asking for more personal songs. Bang wanted to hear hits like Cherry Cherry, over and over again. Diamond wanted to expand. The battle at Shiloh was the last straw. Bang would not let it go. Later he said, "I didn't know how to rewrite Cherry Cherry. I had to write something different." He wasn't trying to cause any trouble. He was only trying to be truthful. That honesty went against Bang's way of doing business. They didn't want anything serious. They wanted their music to be played on the radio, and that made it impossible to stay. When Diamond finally chose to leave Bang Records, in 1967, the reaction was frightening. Friends told him that the FBI had heard talk. Someone from the mafia could go after him. He began to carry a loaded .38 pistol. He sent his wife and daughter away to keep them safe. His boss was attacked. A stink bomb closed the manager's nightclub for 3 months. Even Berry and Greenwich received threats. But Diamond stood firm. Él se alejó. In 1968, he joined Uni Records. That action gave him the freedom he had always desired. Neil Diamond was already a well-known name in the 1960s, but in 1968, something shifted. That year he put out a song named Brooklyn Roads. And it wasn't just another song. It was a key moment. Until then, Diamond had mainly written popular songs that did well on the charts. Pero Brooklyn Roads era algo personal. He said it was the most personal and straightforward story I had written until then. It discussed his early years, his hopes, and his background. No era solo una canción. It was an admission. And it was the time when Diamond stopped trying to make popular radio songs, and began sharing stories that were important to him. This new path didn't appear suddenly. He had just signed with MCA Records and wanted to look for something more meaningful, something more genuine. Songs like The Grass Won't Pay No Mind and The Singer Sings His Song came next, showing that he was no longer just a pop performer. He was evolving into an artist. Then in 1970, Diamond achieved another important goal. El 10 de octubre, Cracklin' Rosie se convirtió en su primer gran éxito número uno en el Billboard Hot 100. It pushed Diana Ross out of the #1 position, but the Jackson 5 took that spot just a week later. The song came from an unusual place. While traveling in Canada, Diamond learned about a community with more men than women. The single men would buy bottles of cheap wine called Cracklin' Rosie and refer to it as their girlfriend for the weekend. That idea stayed with him, leading to a happy but somewhat sad song that grabbed the world's attention. He recorded it with some of the top session musicians in the industry, including members of the famous Wrecking Crew. Although some listeners found the lyrics confusing, Diamond didn't mind. The song was a big success and helped keep the excitement going after earlier hits like Sweet Caroline and Holly Holy. At this point, he was not only writing deeper songs, but he was also topping the charts. By 1972, Diamond was very famous. Instead of just going on another tour, he took a daring step. He reserved 20 nights at the Winter Garden Theater on Broadway. That type of venue was typically meant for classic legends like Judy Garland, not for pop stars. No one had done a solo concert series on Broadway like that since Al Jolson in the 1930s. Some believed it was too dangerous, but Diamond succeeded. Every show was completely full. Critics were impressed, including the New York Times, which acknowledged that even though it seemed like a crazy idea, Diamond had the skill and presence to make it successful. He had already impressed audiences at the Greek Theater earlier that year, but this was something else. It was more personal and more dramatic. Cuando la carrera terminó, Diamond se quemó en descanso. He announced he was taking a break from performing to spend time with his family, especially his young son Jesse. The stage would remain empty for the next 4 years. He was still making history. On August 24, 1972, Diamond made a live album at the Greek Theater. That night turned into a Hot August Night, a double album that was a key moment in his career. El no se contuvo. He brought in a modern quadraphonic sound system to surround the audience with music. The outcome was exciting. The critics were very impressed. Fans were very hungry for more. The album reached #5 in the United States, but the big surprise was in Australia. It stayed at #1 for 29 weeks in a row, and was in the top 20 for 2 entire years. That type of success was incredible. Years later, Diamond would release follow-up albums. Hot August Night 2 in 1987, Hot August Night/NYC in 2009, and Hot August Night 3 in 2018. They're it original. That one became famous. Robert Hilburn from the Los Angeles Times said it was an even greater success than the Greek Theater shows from the summer before. El durante todo esto, Diamond intentó algo nuevo. He agreed to compose the music for a movie version of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, a well-known novella back then. What was supposed to be a moment of creativity quickly became a disaster. The film's director Hal Bartlett changed Diamond's music without getting his permission. Enojado, Diamond demandó. Even the author of the book Richard Bach went to court. The movie was a disaster. It only made slightly more than its $1.5 million budget, earning $1.6 million. Even with a special method of using real seagulls on screen and adding voices in post-production, the movie failed. But what about Diamond's soundtrack? That was a different situation. It sold more than 10 million copies, and earned him a Grammy for Best Score Soundtrack Album, and a Golden Globe for Best Original Score. The music was so much better than the film that Diamond included a 6-song suite from the soundtrack in his concerts, such as his 1976 Love at the Greek Show. Years later, he also released a studio version in a box set. For Diamond, the movie might not have succeeded, but the music had a different message. Amid all this chaos, Diamond took a bold action. In March 1973, He left Uni Records and signed a $5 million deal with Columbia Records, which was the largest music contract at that time. It provided him with $1 million for each of the 5 albums. Today that's roughly $7.1 million for each album. Columbia was taking a big risk, and Diamond came through. He had already received 8 gold records. With this new agreement, he had complete creative control. That freedom let him explore his songwriting more, and try new things with his sound. The contract not only changed his career, but it also transformed the whole industry. It was shown that successful artists could ask for and receive a lot of money and complete freedom. Diamond established a new standard. Ironically, even as his music became very popular, Hollywood kept challenging him. Although Jonathan Livingston Seagull was criticized, the soundtrack became very popular. It stayed on the charts for almost a year, and received positive reviews worldwide. Songs like Bee, Skybird, and Lonely Looking Sky became regular features in his live performances. Despite all the legal battles and drama behind the scenes, the music remained strong. Critics who disliked the film had to acknowledge the strength of the soundtrack. Even during Diamond's toughest times, he still created great music. By 1976, he was prepared to change again. That year, he released Beautiful Noise, a project he worked on with Robbie Robertson from the band. The two met at Woodstock, but they didn't start working together seriously until they got back in touch in California. For 6 months they created an album that mixed Diamond's storytelling with Robertson's rich, grounded sound. Garth Hudson, who is also in the band, added his signature organ. The singles performed well. If You Know What I Mean reached number 11 in the United States, and was number 1 on the easy listening chart. Don't Think Feel hit number 43. The title song was a success in Europe, hitting number 13 in the UK, number 6 in West Germany, and number 3 in the Netherlands. Diamond also sang Dry Your Eyes with the band at their goodbye concert, The Last Waltz, which was recorded by Martin Scorsese. The album became platinum, proving that Diamond could still grow and succeed. Still, the hurt from Jonathan Livingston Seagull didn't fade. Diamond was clear. He would only work on another film if he had complete control. The lawsuit had caused pain, and he didn't want to go through that again. However, by 1980, he broke that promise. He acted in a new version of The Jazz Singer, thinking he would have more control this time. Él estaba equivocado. The movie was a big failure with critics. Diamond won a Razzie for being the worst actor. The Laurence Olivier, along with his co-star, won the award for Worst Supporting Actor. One scene where Diamond's character uses blackface caused anger and resulted in a riot on screen. However, the music conveyed a different message once more. Songs such as America, Hello Again, and Love on the Rocks became timeless hits. The movie might not have been successful, but the soundtrack stuck around, just like Diamond always did. When Neil Diamond arrived on the set of The Jazz Singer, he wasn't just entering a movie. He was entering a world controlled by Sir Laurence Olivier. Olivier, a famous actor with many years of talent, was paid $1 million for 10 weeks of work. His voice, his stance, and even his presence all seemed to overshadow Diamond. The singer, who is new to acting, later said he felt like a fish out of water. That was more than a figure of speech. You could notice it in every scene. Diamond seemed confused. He hardly looked at anyone. Critics observed, the crew did too. One moment showed that tension perfectly. Diamond was expected to show a strong emotional reaction, but he couldn't reach that point. Se quedó parado. He left the set and entered the recording booth. Su banda estaba esperando. He asked them to play something that would make him really angry. They picked a song by Barry Manilow. That worked. He burst out in anger. Director Richard Fleischer noticed the right moment and said action. What appeared on screen wasn't acting. It was real frustration caught by chance, but the discomfort ran deeper. The Janet Moslin from the New York Times noted that Diamond appeared sad and was hardly involved. Olivier was also criticized for using a tired accent when he performed his role. The two never connected. The tension between them wasn't just behind the scenes, it affected every shot. After the movie, Diamond was honest. El lo dijo claramente. Prefiero ser un muy buen cantante que un actor mediocre. That movie changed something in him. The director had to work hard to get usable scenes from him, like pulling teeth. The experience left a mark that lasted for many years. He returned to acting once 20 years later for a brief appearance in Saving Silverman. But even then, he joked, "If I ever do a movie again, it'll be a singing serial killer." The pain remained. Although the film's soundtrack was a hit and got him a Golden Globe nomination, he also became the first person to win the Razzie Award for Worst Actor. After that, offers were made, but Diamond never attempted again. He knew where he fit in, and it wasn't in front of a movie camera. Before becoming famous, Diamond lived a different life. At 17, right after finishing high school, he met Jane Posner. She was with him before the famous songs, before he became famous. They got married in 1963, and had 2 daughters, Marjorie and Elin. At first everything seemed stable, but by 1967, right when Diamond's career was starting to grow, the marriage was breaking down. They split up that year, and got divorced in 1969. Diamond later acknowledged that he wasn't a good husband or father at that time. There were rumors about him cheating, but Jane never commented publicly. She remained silent, dignified and calm. That same year Diamond married Marcia Murphy, who was a production assistant. The timing was quick, maybe too quick for some, but it signaled a change. Songs like Sweet Caroline and Holly Holy became very popular, and Marcia was right there with him. They had 2 sons, Jesse and Micah, and created a blended family. They were married for 25 years. In Hollywood, that's a long time. But when it finished in 1994, it did so with a big impact. Diamond supposedly paid her $150 million in the divorce, making it one of the biggest settlements ever. Yet he did not complain. "She was there for me," he said. "She deserves every cent." In 1976, at the peak of his popularity, Diamond released a song that caused fans to stop and take notice. If you understand what I mean, it wasn't the same as his other hits. It was mysterious, gloomy, and full of feelings. He mentioned it was about a teenage romance with an older woman, but others thought it had a deeper meaning. Critics believed it suggested problems in the marriage, possibly even feelings of regret. Lines such as "gave it away for the sake of a dream" felt very personal, almost too personal. It didn't seem like the assured Diamond of Cracklin' Rosie. It sounded like someone struggling with the price of being famous. By 2012, he was ready to share what he couldn't say earlier. In a candid interview, he took responsibility for his unsuccessful marriages. "Ambas eran mujeres espectaculares, dijo él. Perhaps I wasn't able to do it." He admitted that he requires a lot of attention in relationships. When he needed something, he wanted it right away. "Él los esperaba, que su pareja dada, the boat, él los adila, él los admitió." At 71, starting a third marriage, he said, "I don't want to end this journey alone." That journey led him to Katie McNeil. Se conocieron en 2007. Se con él tenía 37 años. Tenía 68 años. In the beginning, it was only business. Él los atraía para su jefe. Pero las cosas cambiaron despacio. She made his concert documentary in 2009, and became closer. In 2011, they got engaged. He announced it on Twitter in rhymes. "Katie and I just got engaged, and I hope you wish us the best." Se casaron in 2012. After the ceremony, she personally drove them home in her wedding dress, riding in a small sports car. The dress hardly fit. En 1994, se comenta su enamorada. He wanted to use "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon" in Pulp Fiction. Se comenta speculadores con los de stenes. No se esqueñas es consumes en esqueñas en esquecientes que involucran drogas o fumar. But in the end, he allowed a cover version. It was the correct decision. The song not only improved the film's mood, but it also increased interest in Diamond's earlier works. Sales increased. Tarantino, who discovered the song by chance in a record store in Holland, described it as a really cool track that just stayed with him. However, not all of Diamond's lyrics have aged well. Sukexido de 1971, E Comente Ente Yifa. Dave Berry made fun of it. Was Neil surprised that the chair did not hear him? Fans were very angry. E Comente Ente Yil Diamond is God. Another target was Play Me. The phrase song she brought to me made glamour enthusiasts very excited. Diamond has used the word brought correctly in other songs. This was not an error. It was a choice that wasn't well liked. Listeners even changed the lyrics themselves to make it better. In 2018, everything was different. Just a few days before turning 77, Diamond revealed that he had Parkinson's disease. He cancelled the Australia and New Zealand part of his 50th anniversary tour. The illness made touring very hard, but he told fans he was still going to create more. This ride has been so great. So great. So great. Thanks to you, he said. A few days later, he got a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. 6 months later, in July 2018, a fire got near his home in Colorado. The Lake Christine fire was very large. More than 12,500 acres were burned. Diamond arrived at a local meeting and surprised 200 tired firefighters. He grabbed a guitar and played Sweet Caroline. His wife Katie presented him. He told the crowd, "I want to make dinner for you. Kiss you. Thank you. The weight on our hearts is gone now." In March 2020, just before the world closed down due to COVID, Diamond made another unexpected appearance. At 79, fighting Parkinson's, he walked onto the stage at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. It was a fundraiser for brain health. Lavaba Lentiduelas. He seemed alive. El Canto Hello Again. Forever in Blue Jeans. I am. I said, and of course Sweet Caroline. The Comet de Minutes said it best. No Jewish man looks better in sequins than Neil Diamond. On the night of March 7, 2020, the Comente Yil Las Vegas celebrated Neil Diamond Day. This title was perfect for a man whose voice shaped many generations, and who, even when quiet, never stopped singing.